What up, y'all? It's the homie Dame, and it's time for some hot takes. But this time we're doing another episode of Reddit hot takes. Yeah, I went on that horribly embarrassing website to find some anime takes to talk about. So if y'all are on board, and I don't blame you if you're not, let's get into it. Alright, so here we are in the nightmare wasteland that is r/anime. This first one is long, so I'm gonna put it here for y'all to read, but essentially the take is, if you're gonna write a harem story, actually have a harem instead of a single girl ending. This poster is basically tired of the stories where the obvious main girl wins every time and it just dances around the idea of a harem without actually going balls deep. And you know what? I agree. The idea of some dopey dude having a harem in the 21st century is already ridiculous. So why would you ever want to play it straight? People always say, oh, harems are so unrealistic. No shit. Just lean into the fantasy wish fulfillment aspect of it, because I mean, is it really all that different from the absurdity of having a demon fox sealed inside some kid, or having the budget to feed multiple dragon girls with a desk job in modern Japan? This is why 100 Kanajo is the greatest thing ever created, because it understands that the very concept of having multiple girlfriends is like stupid and goofy, so it treats it just like that. It's a comedy more than it is a harem story, or I guess it's a comedy about harems. Don't get me wrong, romance stories where there's a harem aspect have been done well, but just think about how ridiculous it is to play this idea straight. It's such a blatant, obvious, wish fulfillment, self-masturbatory idea that it's like, how could you ever write a serious drama with a straight face? Again, it's been done before, but the point that this post is making is that you'd think this would be the minority, not the majority. Most harem stories should end in, a harem, but that's just not the case. And I agree, if you're gonna do, a harem story, don't be a fucking pussy. Go all in on the harem. Even if you do it like School Days and you show the negative aspect of trying to play a bunch of girls at the same time, at least you're still committed to the bit. But to give the other side of the argument, to play devil's advocate, there's this comment here in this same thread. They say that sometimes the point of the wish fulfillment in a harem story is just to have the reader feel what it's like to have, a bunch of girls fawning over them or to be popular with girls. Also, there's the idea of having a bunch of waifus to pick from, so the audience can choose the one they like the best, without the main character themselves committing to one. Then you can like sell merch and make a bunch of money off the girls. W capitalism, I guess. And they also make a good point here that some harem shows aren't actually harems, in that the point of the show is not to have a harem, it's just to have multiple female characters that interact with the MC. I would say something like Monogatari fits this category too. But if your show is literally about having a harem, like that's a central part of it, you should go all in. This next one is one that just popped up and it's got 0 karma, so it's gonna be spicy in the comments. Least favorite female archetype. I specify female because after seeing comments that touch on this in various threads, it seems pretty universal that the dense and pathetic male MC who is allergic to girls, or the over-the-top horn dog, tends to be the most despised of the male archetypes. But I don't see much about female archetypes as often, so I'm curious why sort of female character trope/type you're put off by the most. Bonus question, what is your favorite as well? First off, I would disagree with what the worst male archetype is. For me personally, it's the hyper edgelord, too cool for school type dudes like Sasuke or Ayano Koji or whatever the fuck his name is. Or, even when it's done ironically for comedic effect, like the main character from that assassin show. I hate all of those characters. But yeah, let's see what the comments say for the worst female archetype. Women who inexplicably fall in love with the generic MC for just treating them like a human being. They don't even need to be nice, just treat them humanely. Female character writing is subpar most anime shows, but this trope is insanely frequent. Revi from Black Lagoon is up there for a relatively complex female character that's written well. I mean, yeah, this kind of ties back in with the harem stuff we were talking about earlier, because that's a very common trope there. I guess I kind of agree, it's in line with the common incel mentality of, oh, I opened the door for a girl, so now she's obligated to bounce on my dick and have my kids. It's the whole, I'm a nice guy, why don't girls like me type of thing. That does suck. I agree with that. Violent tsundere type. Y'all already know what I think of this. This is the most pro tsundere community on the internet. My community is a safe space for tsundere enjoyers. Because like we've been saying, you know, the idea of a tsundere is just so ridiculous that it's more fun if you play it for laughs. Like if I'm watching a cartoon, it's fun to see cartoonish archetypes like this. Only if you do it well though, because archetypes like the edgy dude I talked about earlier are cartoonish too, but in a bad way. Arrogant lady who is just there to get humiliated in combat. If they aren't immediately discarded after serving that purpose, it is almost like they gain a fetish to losing to the super indifferent guy. Oh yeah, definitely agree with this one. And they're right too, you know, when they do scenes like this, the expectation is that the audience is like, yeah, that's what that uppity bitch gets for daring to be confident and in a position of authority over a man. But to argue for the other side, you know, again, playing devil's advocate, this can also be a source of good gap moe, if, you know, it's not written in a weird misogynistic way. I'm thinking something like Ren Yamashiro from Mato Seihai no Slave. That's a pretty fun character. I hate violent yandere. Yeah, see, this thread about to piss me off. All right, so I found a thread from 4 years ago that is specifically hot takes, and the OP has kind of an interesting one that is show specific. And thank God they agree with me that saying that, you know, saying this anime is overrated or this anime is underrated is the most boring hot take you could give. My Hero Academia could have been way more interesting if they stuck with Deku being quirkless. Same goes for Black Clover and its MC. An anime that sticks with an abilityless MC in a world where abilities are normal is way more interesting than having the MC be OP/powerful. This is a good one to talk about now because the final season of My Hero Academia has just started to air. And I mean, I agree with this take kind of. I wouldn't say it'd be like better or more interesting, but like, I guess it'd be interesting in a different way. So any diehard My Hero Academia fans out there, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it like a common misconception that Horikoshi's original concept was for Deku to stay quirkless? Like I think he always meant for him to get one for all, or at least that idea came very early on. I think what it is that a lot of fans saw those original Deku concept arts and were like, oh, whoa, he was originally supposed to be like a Batman type character. And then they back that up with him keeping, you know, his notes on other heroes because it's like, that's how he knows how to fight them. Apparently that's all a misconception and he was always going to get a quirk, but again, I don't know. The point is, I do think that would be interesting. I do like these stories, just like this poster said, you know, where you have a powerless dude that can go head to head with superheroes through their wits and their skills or something like that. Kind of like The Boys, or again, like Batman. I'm not necessarily saying it'd be better if My Hero Academia was like this because we don't know, you know, we don't know how this hypothetical story would go. It would be completely different from what we have now. So, you know, it'd be hard to extrapolate, but I think it would be interesting. I do like the original idea of Uraraka having Mount Lady's quirk though. And plus her original concept design looked better in my opinion. All right, let's look at another one from this same thread. Isekai isn't the problem with anime. It is that the Japanese like their stories to follow specific forms is why isekais are everywhere. So this take is terrible for many reasons, but the main one is that it plays on one of my biggest pet peeves that you hear me mention all the time on this channel. It's the stereotype that all Japanese people act exactly the same. They all want the same things. They don't want change. You know, what do they say? The nail that sticks up gets hammered down. I've already talked about it so much and debunked this concept before, so I don't want to get too much into it, but you know, in short, Japanese history has been defined by change and going against the status quo. This has been their history. It's true that this is a perception that maybe a lot of Japanese people would like to be true, but the equivalent would be like the idea that Americans value the individual and you can just be yourself in America because we're all about freedom. That's something that Americans would like you to believe, you know, for their PR or whatever, but is that the reality? Sometimes not. It's the same thing with this idea of Japan and conformity. But also, this take is terrible because every entertainment industry leans on formulas. Americans pop out superhero blockbusters like a fucking assembly line. You know, back in the day, Britain had its formula for cozy murder mystery stories. I'm sure, you know, a place like India has its go-to formula for Bollywood films. Audiences everywhere reward repetition because people like things that are familiar. So of course, industries will cater to that because, you know, they want to make money. Isekai is a big trend these days, you know, that's true. It's just like how mechas, post-apocalyptic dystopias and all that were popular back in the day, just like how all countries have had their trends come and go as well. But to say isekai is popular because of some inherent quality to Japanese people or Japanese culture where they like specific stories is wild, because every culture likes their specific stories. And if your rebuttal to that is, well, you know, Hollywood makes plenty of unique movies. They don't follow the, you know, cookie cutter formulas all the time. So does the Japanese film industry, and so does the anime industry for that matter. So in short, the popularity of isekai and superhero films and Korean dramas and whatever else is popular these days is because industries cater to what people like. These things happen to be popular, so a lot get made. That's it. It has more to do with that than whatever ideas of Japanese culture this Redditor has. There is no such thing as problematic content, only overly sensitive normies. First of all, I hope none of y'all ever unironically use the word normie, because it just makes me want to peel my skin off with how cringy it is. Don't ever say that shit to me. But yeah, a little sneak preview. I have a big video that I'm planning where I'm gonna talk about stuff like this. You know, I don't want to say too much because it's coming soon, but yeah, I'm gonna talk about some shit. But to just address this real quick, I think there 100% is such a thing as problematic content, but it's a lot more nuanced than you think. So we'll leave it at that for now. I'll just say I disagree with this take. I never understood how annoying wish fulfillment romance can be until I watched ones that weren't catered to me, like Sign of Affection and Honey Lemon Soda. This is an interesting one because I haven't seen a single wish fulfillment romance that caters to me or that I can relate to, because I don't need any wishes fulfilled, if that makes sense. And yet, I like a lot of those anime. I think this goes back to a conversation I had on a video way back where it's like, does anime need to be relatable to be good? And I said no, you don't need to relate to something, or in this case, have it cater to you to be able to enjoy it. Like, I have 2 kids and car notes I gotta pay. There's nothing I can relate to in my dress up darling. The wish fulfillment premise of, oh, what if you were some depressing dude that had a bubbly gyaru girl in your life? Wouldn't that just be so great? That does nothing for me. I don't give a fuck about any of that, but even still, I think the show is pretty good, because I also enjoy reading and watching a lot of shoujo stuff and josei stuff, and that for sure is not catered to me, but I can still enjoy it because I like art, I like good stories, I like when authors create something cool, and I like to appreciate that kind of stuff, you know, which is why I can take in many different kind of art from many different kind of mediums, because I like it all. Finally, one last hot take. This is some of the realest shit I've ever read on the internet. All right, here's a hot take, apparently really hot based on this thread, saying things like, this anime is bad, this anime is good, this anime is overrated, this anime is underrated, is not a hot take unless you explain why, and that explanation is something most people would disagree with. Without an explanation, there's probably thousands of people who said the same thing about every single show worth discussing. But what if it's about one of the most popular, highly praised show? Surely it's a hot take then. Think so? Make a quick search on Attack on Titan overrated. A lot of y'all need to take notes on what this person said for the next time I ask y'all for hot takes. To add on to it though, the reason why I hate getting, you know, X anime overrated, X anime underrated takes is because there's no discussion to be had. The point of these hot take videos, at least for me, is to generate good discussion. If you say you think, I guess, Attack on Titan is overrated, that literally means nothing. If you just don't like the show, nothing I say is gonna convince you otherwise, and it wouldn't matter anyway, because you disliking Attack on Titan doesn't affect anybody who does like it, and vice versa. So what is there to talk about? You dislike the show, great. I happen to like it, now what? Let's just move on. And people will be like, you know, well, you can give your reasonings and it can be like a debate. No, I don't care about any of that. You can give all the reasons you want, but things essentially boil down to, you know, I like it or I dislike it. It very rarely leads to a fun, interesting discussion. But yeah, that's all I got for today. Hope you enjoyed watching this quick video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe and comment below what your opinion on these hot takes are. And if you want, donate to Patreon to support the channel. Otherwise, that's the video. Peace. AOT is popular, not good. I don't care how many downvotes I get for speaking the objective. Yeah, see, this is the type of shit y'all be sending me, talking about, I might get crucified for saying this brave opinion, but I just have to be the one to speak out. Like, you're literally that one meme of the old dude standing up, like, wow. Wow, thank you for your service. You truly ventured where no man has dared to venture before. What an intellectual you are.